Tragically, a US fighter jet was indeed shot down over Iran. A second plane has also gone down, but this one was apparently shot down by offensive fire from Iran. And that is the first airborne casualty, they're saying, of this conflict. Of course, some of the other planes that have been marked as damaged by the US military, when you see the photos, they're totaled, they're S-canned, they're not gonna be flying anymore. But this one is the first where it wasn't friendly fire, and they're actually copping to the fact that it was shot down, despite the fact that we keep being told by our leaders, who would never lie to us, that all of the Iranian missile launchers have been destroyed for literally weeks. Anyway, Iranian state media posted on social media, because this war is terminally online. They posted footage of the downed jet. They claimed that it was an F-35, which is one of the more recent and more advanced planes in the US military. It was in fact an F-15, which is significantly older. It's not a stealth jet or anything like that, but it was indeed shot down. We don't know exactly where the attack occurred, but if you want to jump to this B-roll, people inside of Iran have been tracking where the you can see flying. There's a C-130 and a couple of rescue helicopters, which thankfully they were not shot down. That was in central Iran, supposedly Khuzestan province, which is in central Iran, is where that was going on. Now, the good news is that one of the two members of the crew of the plane that was shot down has actually been recovered, which is great news. The issue is that, at least as of right now, and I was really hoping that we would get some sort of update by the time the show went live, the second member of the crew has not been recovered. And although there's not been a lot of information released by our government about exactly what happened, it seems as though the plane might have been shot down as much as 15 hours ago, which means that if you did go down, and you are trying to find somewhere to hide, it's an increasingly long amount of time that you're having to hide. What I have to imagine is an absolutely massive on-the-ground manhunt by the Iranians, who would like nothing more than to capture what I believe is supposed to be the electronics warfare officer from the plane. A news anchor for a local affiliate associated with state media in Iran said this: if you capture the enemy pilot or pilots alive and hand them over to the police and military forces, you will receive a valuable reward and bonus. Which I imagine, yes, they probably will. You can see here more photos that have been put out, including of the ejection chair, the ejector seat, which is grounded at that point. And so we're also in the weird position where more information is now being released, Yaz, by the Iranians about all of this as it develops than the United States military, which has not been forthcoming or honest about almost any aspect of this war. I don't know why we would assume they would be about this disaster. And it's a disaster both objectively, but also bear in mind, I made like a vague allusion to this. Pete Hegseth just in the past couple of days was bragging about how the fact that there is so little ability of Iran to strike back against our planes that some of these slow bombers that previously had not been able to operate over the skies of Iran, now we can just cruise around over Tehran if we want. It's so safe. And then within a couple of days, of course, a jet is shot down. So this looks really bad for the Trump regime. It looks really bad for the war effort. We're hoping that the other member of the crew is recovered, but what do you make of this?
Yeah, what's interesting is that the Iranians have spoken to us, the American people, more directly than our own government has. And I say that because, of course, Pete Hegseth is always doing his weird addresses that we, for some reason, have access to. Trump is giving his own addresses. I didn't even watch his address because why? Like, what is the point? He just gets up there and he lies. He doesn't say anything real. He doesn't say anything that you can actually bank on or expect to see happen. He says one thing, he says the exact opposite thing the very next day. This has been happening consistently since he started all of this in Iran. And the Iranian government is putting stuff out. And again, like just the fact that, even the stuff that's coming out of Iran feels like it could be a little bit more trustworthy, that's very sad. Because this is a government that we're at war with right now, and we're looking at what they're showing us, and we're like, okay, well, maybe that is what's happening over there. I'm not saying that that's the best way to approach this situation, but that's what we have when our own government doesn't even have the respect to tell the American people what is going on, why we're over there, what are the goals. Trump keeps talking about these goals in Iran that he has to hit, that the Americans we're hitting all of our goals, we're hitting all of our targets. What are the goals? What are the targets? What are we doing? One minute he says the war is done and we've done everything that we went over there to do. Next day he's talking about sending in ground troops. Next thing he's talking about sending an entire carrier over to the Strait of Hormuz. And what's happening right now, something interesting, if that's even the right word for it, is that people who are already active within the military are kind of trying to find ways out of their military service right now. And there are ways for them to get out of military service, but so many of them now are reporting that they do not want to go to Iran. They don't know what they're fighting for. They don't know why they're being removed from their families. And they don't want to go over there and bomb schools full of children. They don't want to kill people when they don't even know what they're fighting for. So much of military service is dependent on that will, that inner strength that comes. The Iranian people have something to fight for. The Americans do not right now.
Yeah. I mean, like we've fought a lot of really stupid wars, even just in my lifetime. But they at least tried to put together an interesting pitch for it.
Like a narrative, yeah.
Yeah, like the idea that we'll invade Iraq because something 9/11. It didn't actually make sense if you really think about it, but like they tried to sell that. What the hell are you risking your life for in Iran? And when you can't trust them at all. And again, it's not like our past leaders were always super forthcoming and honest about war. Again, they lied about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We've been lied to before by our leadership, but generally it was like the big lie, and then mostly you could trust the smaller scale stuff that they said. You can't trust a single goddamn thing that Donald Trump, any of them, Pete Hegseth, say about this, because the combination of the fact that they don't respect the American people, they don't believe that they should be responsive to what the American people think. If they did, they never would have launched into this war, considering that they got into office specifically running against this sort of foreign, pointless, wasteful adventures. And also thinking that like, oh, this is three-dimensional chess. Like we put out something about how we're gonna be diplomatic or whatever, and then we bomb them or whatever, which is why I believe that all of the BS we've been hearing with like leaks coming from inside the White House, Donald Trump's address, 2 to 3 more weeks and we're out. I think all of that is a total and complete lie. And you see all of these people who live near bases all across America talking about huge shipments of tanks going out and stuff like that. And the leaks come out, Donald Trump's speech comes out. Have you heard any updates about soldiers being taken out of the Middle East? Like, oh yeah, that whole thing about like, the 2,000 Marines, that ship is back on its way to San Diego. I haven't heard anything like that. And I think the actions speak infinitely louder than the words of some of the biggest liars in American history. And so I believe, and honestly, if it happens that this other, a crewman from the F-15 ends up having died or is taken prisoner or whatever, they're gonna use it as a justification for an invasion. That's my belief, at least. For now, most of the information, as I said, we're getting out of Iran. Not just information, but also nonstop trolling. The speaker of Iran's parliament tweeted this: after defeating Iran 37 times in a row, this brilliant no-strategy war they started has now been downgraded from regime change to, hey, can anyone find our pilots, please? Wow, what incredible progress. Absolute geniuses. So as tweets go, that's a somewhat clever one. Although I have to say, and I think probably a lot of people will agree, I wish we didn't live in a world in which that sort of thing happens. I don't need wars to be persecuted in this particular way, or the fun that some of the country-specific Iranian embassies are having, like with this, where the Iranian embassy in South Africa is posting about how the regime change has happened as they cross off all of the generals being fired by Pete Hegseth. And it's not concerning at all that a lackey and a fascist like Pete Hegseth is clearing out the top leadership of the military in the midst of a war. It's pretty easy, I think, he has to come up with explanations as to why he might be going against them. I think they're telling him things he doesn't want to hear, including possibly saying no to orders that might indeed be illegal. And so that's my concern. I mentioned also earlier, and then I'll get more thoughts from you, that there was a second plane that went down. This was a second combat plane crashed in the Persian Gulf region on Friday. The pilot has already been rescued, thankfully. This was an A-10 Warthog attack plane that went down near the Strait of Hormuz about the same time that an Air Force F-15E, the one that we were talking about earlier, went down. And I had not heard much about A-10s being used in the fighting. That is a very low to the ground attack aircraft, usually used against I mean, mostly like enemy vehicles and things like that. It's not a bomber. It's not like an F-15 or an F-35 or an F-22 or anything like that. So I don't know if they're practicing with them in advance of taking out Iranian tanks. I don't know, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that a lot of these weapons manufacturers, including like, for example, Lockheed Martin, donated a lot of money to this administration, and they are making bank off of everything that is going on right now between the United States and Israel and Iran and whoever else is involved, because it's getting very difficult to keep track of all that right now. It's also embarrassing for this country that we're getting trolled by people from Iran with all these memes and things like that. And usually, like the Americans, like we take a lot of pride in like our snark, but we don't like it when it's directed back this way at us and when they're good at it, right? Like it's hard to deny. But yeah, more seriously, like the fact that our own military is being just diminished the way that it is by this administration. Just the mere fact that even before this war, Trump was constantly just firing people and putting different people in their positions. And every time he puts someone in their position, they're less experienced, they're less good at the job, but they're more loyal to him and more likely to just say yes to him, right? Because how do you lose a job in the Trump administration? You just tell him no, and he's gonna get rid of you, right? It's only a matter of time before any of that happens. And so what happens now is we have all of these people in very, very high positions with a lot of power who are completely incompetent, do not know what they're doing there. They're bloodthirsty, it seems. I mean, like Pete Hegseth, just listening to him talk, he sounds like a 12-year-old boy, and no offense to 12-year-old boys, but they are the worst, and he sounds like one of them, And most of them grow out of it though, right? Pete Hegseth, that's just who he is forever, it would seem. And with somebody like Donald Trump, he has his own motives and his own goals for being over there, all these things that he's doing. I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself in the stories that we're gonna be covering on the show later, but there is no way out of this for him, right? It's either he is humiliated by pulling out of everything, or he just keeps going and throwing more money, more weapons, and more people into this situation that is becoming more and more deadly, more and more expensive as we go. And not just for the Americans, really for the entire world, because countries around the world are now starting to suffer as a result of everything going on right now in the Strait and between the United States, Israel, and Iran. For example, places like Pakistan even, right? Like they're moving from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week, encouraging people to start working from home because there's no more gas or there's no oil to go around. So this is affecting the entire planet, and all of this for Donald Trump. And if it's about, doing all this stuff or he's humiliated, then whatever, like let him be humiliated. I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah, and what sucks is we can't expect any more from like Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. But in theory, there's another branch of government that's supposed to be weighing in on this sort of stuff, and they just have no thoughts whatsoever. Totally fine. The war crimes, the waste of money. Who cares? Not worth talking about.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.